Hello, my name is Davi Guerra, and I will be speaking today about the ethical implications of big data, or data mining analysis on a massive scale. As the information age enters a new era of analysis, corporations and governmental entities have been gifted with a new tool of incredible potential, efficiency, and possibly destructive leverage over all members of the internet-connected civilizations. To set a standard to which we will examine the moral dilemmas of big data, we will use the ACM, or Association for Computer Machinery's Code of Ethics, and highlight the components of Statutes 1.3 and 1.7, which apply to dilemmas raised by big data. Statute 1.3, Be Honest and Trustworthy, states in part, the honest computing professional will not make deliberately false or deceptive claims about a system or system design, but will instead provide full disclosure of pertinent system limitations and problems. Statute 1.7, Respect the Privacy of Others, will be the most contested statute as it deals with the fluid and ever-changing notion of privacy. It states in part, there is an increased potential for violating the privacy of individuals and groups on a scale unprecedented in history. It is the responsibility of the professional to maintain the privacy and integrity of data describing individuals. To get a better understanding of the scope of the issues raised by big data, it is important to understand big data is not going anywhere. It has quickly become an industry standard for online companies. In its honest and direct application, big data is an effective marketing tool which exposes consumers to less misdirected advertisements and allows corporations to better connect to their target customers through the process of making statistical inferences for online user accounts and the users themselves. Furthermore, it is important to discuss the fluid and ever-changing notion of privacy to which the ACM Code of Ethics Statute 1.7 correlates to. Andronine Lafrance of TheAtlantic.com believes by 2025, the definition of privacy will be unrecognizable from what we consider private today. She goes on to state that there is little incentive for entities that benefit from the breakdown in privacy to change the way they operate. In order to get more robust privacy protections, like terms of service agreements that are actually readable to non-lawyers, or rules that let people review the personal information that data brokers collect about them, many experts agree that individuals will have to demand them. But even that may not work. While 80% of American adults claim they are concerned about third parties like businesses or advertisers accessing the data they share on social media websites, there is inexplicably little pressure on online companies to change the standard of transparency for online data mining. That is because, while explicit concern tells one story, internet behavior is indicative of another. As the usage and popularity of social media finds new levels of online connectivity, online users engage in ever-increasing levels of self-publishing, while devaluing their own privacy. However, while information is offered freely, data mining is not perfect. Take, for example, the following Facebook conversation. We can guess that the original poster is either an extreme homophobe or closeted homosexual. However, we cannot be certain of either. Can a company really be seen as respecting the ACM Statute 1.7 of respecting a user's privacy if the ads on their computer describe their personal and private interests? Can a company truly assume no one but the user will ever come across their computer screen with an open browser, or borrow their phone while Facebook is open? Chances are this user was uninformed his search history had generated an inferred label for his Facebook profile. It is also important to note that mined data is often sold and distributed amongst online companies. Can a company selling analysis be considered to be following ACM Statute 1.3 regarding honesty if their analysis, which is assumed credible, is based off faulty data? Perhaps the original poster was visiting Grindr for a quote-unquote experiment. With transparency in collected data, it is possible for consumers to defend themselves from mistakes or deliberate actions taken by corporations in the name of marketing or malicious intent alike. It isn't an absurd notion that big data possesses the potential for abuse. After all, in 2013, several cases of NSA agent surveillance abuses were released to the public. In the report, agents were stated to have spent NSA resources and access tracking potential or existing lovers and ex-lovers of both genders. But what kind of damage can big data do? An even more appalling example would be the New York City Police Department, which employed a task force labeled the Demographics Unit to build detailed profiles on all Muslims using plainclothes detectives and recording private conversations purely on the basis of race. The demographics unit ran for almost 13 years until it was disbanded in 2014 due to the potential civil action by those who were labeled potential criminals without evidence of any actual crimes. Corporate or governmental entities cannot perfectly control how inferred data or how access to consumers' data will be used. A good example of this was exposed in 2008 when two former NSA agents claimed to have been asked to join in on a conversation of an overseas United States soldier having phone sex with a significant other. While policies can be enacted to reduce the occurrence of these abuses, the victim is ultimately the citizen or consumer who cannot take action as they are unaware of the occurrence of abuse. The extent of misappropriated data reaches far beyond social inconveniences. In a startling case of data mining corruption, Tom Hayes of the Associated Press reported that there are, quote, a batch of corruption cases in recent years against the NYPD officers accused of abusing FBI-operated National Crime Information Center databases to snoop on coworkers, tip off drug dealers, stage robberies, and most notoriously, scheme to abduct and eat women, end quote. The implications of abuse in these cases are critical. Important questions still remain. Who is responsible for maintaining the privacy of consumers? And is there anything consumers can do to regain their privacy? Is privacy even really a concern for most users? If one would look at Facebook, you might get the impression that privacy isn't entirely on the mind of most of its users. A study at Harvard's Social Cognitive and Affective Neuroscience Lab found our brains respond to self-disclosure the same way they respond to pleasure triggers like food, money, or sex. Social media users exhibit frequent overshare behaviors performed by users who would otherwise prefer to live private lives, but still share personal details frequently. Information that user would not like to make public or would like to keep within a small group of users, but is swayed at the time of posting by an impulse to disregard the desire to remain private. It seems these days the marketing industry is setting the standard for personal privacy, not the consumer. A questionable axiom of privacy consent present in most social media is terms of service agreement, a document which users are required to adhere and expressly agree to in order to use the services of the website. By exerting the pressure of denial of service and shutting down informed consent through legalese, online companies retain a one-sided negotiation on virtually all of their users. Can this, however, be considered an honest and informed relationship between online companies and their users? Following Statute 1.3 of the ACM Code of Ethics, the ethical dilemma occurs when the interpretation of any complete and comprehensive information sharing is largely impractical. Can practicality be one of the defining factors to consider a document uninformative? Where is the line drawn with impractical terms of service agreements? Ultimately, it's up to the consumer to exert pressure on the industry standard of terms of service agreements.